So it's been a little bit. Look, if you don't follow me on Twitter, in all fairness, these past couple months, I guess I should say this past month, has been really hectic. I've been kind of getting into the real swing of college life. I've had a lot of people coming in and out, visiting over the weekends, and shooting videos has been really difficult. I really wanted to release the Joker video, and I just never got around to doing it. I'm going to talk about it in this video, so don't worry, there will still be some stuff on that. This is being worked on. It's obviously not done. It just kind of started out as like posters that we were getting at the local AMC that we were kind of posting up. You know, I got this at a Bruins game, we got this at the AMC, but we're going to print more, I think, and then just kind of collage them on the wall, and it'll make for a really cool set. But for now, my desk is a mess, so we're going to be dealing with this. But I'm back. I want to catch up on everything that I've missed so far. I really want to talk about the movies that have come out since Oscar season has technically started. The way I'm starting in like late September with this. I'm calling it an October recap because most of these movies came out in October. There was one in late September and one I saw on November 1st. So, you know, I guess if you want to kind of shove that all into a month, we're looking at the October movies. Hopefully from here on out, I'm just kind of going to be able to talk about the films as they release. I'm seeing Ford v Ferrari next week, and I'm seeing Playing with Fire this Friday, which I know is going to be a big Oscar contender, so I'll be sure to review that one, just have its own review. That'll be awesome. But I want to just go through these lists of movies that I've seen and talk about, the film for just a brief second, give a quick review, and in, you know, Ice Cold Films terms, quick tends to mean about, 6 to 7 minutes of screen time. And then I want to talk about their actual potential as films for accolades that they could possibly receive, not just at the Oscars, but what precursors could help as they, move through the season. So, let's kind of get into those. First one I want to talk about, definitely the briefest one, is Judy, which is the biopic that came out centering around Judy Garland's later years, kind of her trying to get work after her name has sort of become less valuable, at least, where she lives, and traveling to do all these shows. I haven't seen it in a while, and it's kind of forgettable, so forgive me if I don't recall every plot detail. The movie, like I said, it's not great. It's not quite as awful as I expected it to be. The first act is really not very good. The second act is pretty decently solid. It's got a lot of watchable moments, a lot of good moments, and the ending, it kind of collapses again. But that being said, no matter what website you look at in terms of where you get your Oscar odds, whether it be, Awards Circuit, Gold Derby, I think even IndieWire has her up there, she's pretty much number one everywhere. And I think a nomination is pretty much cemented. I mean, she's the film. Renee Zellweger as Judy Garland is the film. That's probably why the damn thing was made, and that's kind of the only reason anyone would really need to see it. You have the girl from Chernobyl in it, who's pretty good. You've got that one guy who's in, like, every movie and has 6 lines, in La La Land and Beale Street. Like, he's in all sorts of shit that he, And then you've got Michael Gambon, who's got, I counted, he has 5 lines. So the movie is Renee Zellweger as Judy Garland, and it's a vehicle for her to get awards, pretty much. Even though she's won an Oscar in the past, I understand why, people are looking at this as, like, a career Oscar. Renee Zellweger isn't as much of a name now as she was in the early 2000s, so it's kind of cool to see her do a revamp and make something where it seems like she's sort of pushing herself for an Oscar a bit. Does that mean she's going to get it? I'm not 100% sold yet. I think I'll talk a little bit more about Scarlett Johansson and Marriage Story in a little bit. But I think she's got some serious competition, and it screams a little bit of Glenn Close from The Wife for me, where I think the film itself, being as forgettable as it is, could slow her down, but it also might not. The fact that she already has an Oscar might make it seem less pivotal to give her a career Oscar. I'm keeping my eye on how the race for leading actress continues. It is still a September release, so I'm not saying she's cemented for anything yet, But if you're trying to see all of the nominees, Judy is still definitely one to see. Okay, the next one I'm talking about is Joker. I'm finally going to talk about Joker and what I thought about Joker. And I think it's one that you really do need to let sit. I'm almost happy I didn't talk about it immediately after seeing it because there's a lot to unpack with it. And in terms of Oscar potential, I think it's a really interesting case because it's obviously sparked a lot of controversy. I like the movie. I do not love the movie, but I don't hate it. There's a lot of, one or the other. I think I like elements of it, but the element of it I dislike is still really strong to me. And what's funny is I think the element that I don't like, other than Joaquin Phoenix, has the most potential to be nominated at the Academy Awards, which is the script. I don't like the script of this movie. I think it's very spoon-feedy. What's the line? Hold on. What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? I'll tell you what you get. You get what you fucking deserve. Okay. I think also DC had a lot more control than they should have. The Wayne stuff, the Bruce Wayne being in it, them showing the parents getting shot again is infuriating. I think the script really slows the movie down and some of its tonal inconsistencies, but oddly enough, I think that and Joaquin Phoenix are the two things that have the most potential to be nominated. I'm not terribly confident in a picture nomination. I think it's still very possible. I think Todd Phillips especially, has lost a lot of steam for his direction slot. You're kind of looking at a fight for the 5th slot in the director's position, and I'll get to that in a little bit when I talk about Jojo Rabbit. But I don't see Todd Phillips happening, but I think due to the lack of competitive nature of adapted screenplay this year, I think it's plausible that you could squeeze Joker in there, which could propel it forward a little bit to a Best Picture nomination. But, if history shows anything, a screenplay nomination doesn't always mean you're going to be in Best Picture, and being in Best Picture doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to have a screenplay nomination, but the two certainly help. Screenplay is a big precursor for Best Picture, especially the winner of Best Picture. It's quite rare to see a film win Best Picture that doesn't win a screenplay award. So, I think it's a good bet for screenplay, and Joaquin Phoenix, I think, anyone with half a brain and half of any knowledge about anything could probably tell you more than likely you're going to see Joaquin Phoenix get a nomination. Gold Derby has him in 2nd, and, asking the question, is he going to win? That seems to be the topic on everyone's mind. Is Joaquin Phoenix going to win? At this moment, I'm going to say I don't think so. It's funny because you go around and people keep saying, "Oh, I don't want to compare Joaquin Phoenix to Heath Ledger. I don't want to do that." But them giving Joaquin Phoenix an Oscar would kind of be doing that. It would be saying he's just as good, if not better, almost. And I don't think they're going to do that. Heath Ledger winning was such a pivotal moment in the Academy Awards history. It's one of the most important and historic wins in Oscar history. You can debate that all you want if you really want to, but I think that that's just kind of plain and simple. And I don't see a scenario in which anyone is ever going to win an Oscar for playing that character again. And I don't think it's the role they're going to give Joaquin his Oscar for. I think he'll get it eventually. I don't think this is the time for it, and I don't think this is the movie for it, with everything surrounding it. And whether you hated it or you loved it, there's a lot of controversy around the movie. There's no skating around that fact. I think there's a lot working against him, and there are a lot of really good candidates this year for Best Leading Actor, maybe even some possibilities for a surprise in a win. I think Joaquin could be a good bet to win the Golden Globe. I think he's a force to look for in that category, because the HFPA fucking loves giving the popular films the awards, and they're always going to love doing that, so I think he could win there. But I think if someone like Adam Driver wins the SAG, that's going to be a big putback for Joaquin Phoenix later in the season. I also saw The Lighthouse, which I had said early on I didn't think had a ton of potential outside of maybe a Dafoe nomination, and I hate to, not add much to it, but I kind of stand by that. The movie's almost too A24 for it to be noticed by the Oscars. It's very metaphorical and symbolic, and it's almost a bit too artsy for the Academy to recognize. I personally quite like the film. It's not one that particularly tailors to me. I'm not a die hard for the symbolic messages and the interpret your own whatever. Crafted film wise, I think it's beautiful. I think the direction is awesome. I think the editing is awesome. The practical effects are fucking incredible. The way it's put together is really captivating. Some of the first act is a little bit too slow for its own good. I think a little bit of cutting wouldn't hurt, but there's no doubting that I think put together as a movie, it's very well done. I just don't see it calling the Academy's attention, and I think A24 is going to pool its resources and its campaigning elsewhere. I think its best bet is definitely Willem Dafoe, which is, it's almost too bad to see Robert Pattinson being so overlooked for this film, who I think puts on a really, really stellar performance, and he is kind of the core of the movie. You're kind of following his journey, which I thought was also particularly well done, but Dafoe is the strong supporting man, and when he's there, he's fucking there, and the Oscars love him. They like throwing him the awards even when it's not expected, like at Eternity's Gate. There's been a lot of kind of bouncing back and forth of supporting actors to who's going to make that in there. Been hearing a lot about the two popes. I haven't looked as much into that as I'd like to, but I know Anthony Hopkins is big for being in talks in there. The talk of having Pacino and Pesci in the supporting actor category for Irishman has been big talk. I think that movie's coming out here next weekend, so I'll finally be able to get around to seeing that. You got Brad Pitt in there, you have Tom Hanks in there. It's a loaded category, and Dafoe getting in would not be easy. I don't think it's a sure thing that you're going to see Willem Dafoe in the category. Do I think it's possible? Yes, and I think the Academy's recent love for him gives him a lot of edge in terms of getting that slot. It's not a sure bet. I'm not hedging my money on it. I'd like to see if seeing him in the Globes, I honestly don't even think will happen, but I think he could pop up at the SAGs or even the BAFTAs, and if he gets into those two, I think that'll propel him towards the Academy Awards. But I'm not sold on it yet, and I just kind of want to see how his performance holds through time as even the movie continues to open wider and wider. Let's talk about Pain and Glory for a second, which is a movie that has had an interesting kind of track of release, but I think is doing it right in terms of opening at Cannes and then kind of hitting theaters in a limited fashion. It's a movie that not many people are going to see, but I think is the type of film that will draw Academy attention. I personally really love the film. It's one that grows on you a lot by the end. In the beginning, you can be a little bit shaky on it. You're not entirely sure where it's going to go, but when it goes in the direction that it does, I think it's a really beautiful character study and explores the dynamics of a lot of really interesting and layered people who play off of each other really well, with a lot of terrific direction and a lot of terrific performance. The question of what accolades is going to pick up, I don't see it winning anything. It'll be nominated in international film, it is now. And if Parasite hadn't happened to come out this year, it would probably win. We'll talk about Parasite in a little bit. But it'll be nominated for that for sure. I think Banderas is a good bet. Having never been nominated for an Oscar before, this is the kind of performance to draw attention to Academy voters. It's a subtle and quiet performance that's very moving. It's very heartbreaking, heartwarming. It kind of nails everything that you want out of an actor who has never been nominated for an Oscar before. Winning Best Actor at Cannes was a huge moment. I think it just cemented him as an early candidate, and I think his name has been in the minds of voters since Cannes, and I think it's probably going to carry through until nominations come out. A win would be pretty crazy, but it's like one of those surprise wins that you can just kind of see in the back of your head. One of those fucking crazy things that it would be hard to see coming, but if it were to happen, you wouldn't be terribly shocked. Talks of Penelope Cruz getting in there are interesting. I don't know if I see that. She'd be one that would start showing up and everyone would be like, fuck, how do we not think of that? Or she'd be one to pop up I don't know her name, but the supporting actress nominee from Roma, to just all of a sudden get in there and you're like, shit, oh my, like that, I get that. She was a great performance, but I never would have imagined her getting thrown into that category. I think it could be one of the two there. I'm not totally sold on that idea. I also don't know about directing a nomination. I think a screenplay nomination could be feasible, but director is really tight this year. Like I said, I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, but I don't see directing happening. Picture would be a bit of a stretch. I just kind of think it's going to be a big, and I keep saying independent, international film runner. It's not going to win, but I think getting in that category will help help give Banderas a little bit more noise, and I think that those are kind of your two set in stones that you can look for in terms of Oscar nominations for that film. Jojo Rabbit, a film that proved very divisive upon its opening at TIFF, which is quite confusing to me because I actually really loved this movie. Maybe it's my Jewish heritage that kind of set me over the edge on it, but I really, really, really liked it. I found it to be exactly what I thought Taika Waititi would make out of it. A satirical, funny film that has something to say and has a point and hits the heartstrings. That's what he's good at. That's what he's good at making, and that's what he's produced. The TIFF win gives it a picture slot pretty much automatically. I don't see a scenario in which it's not at the very least nominated in picture. I see this movie being nominated kind of everywhere and winning nothing. I don't think it's going to win anything. It's in, what is it? Is it adapted screenplay that it's going for? You would know over there. That was a bit. There's no one over there. I'm checking. Yeah, it's adapted. It's based on a book. You fucking Irishman is beating it in screenplay. There's no... That's just that. And, if you want my pre-prediction before I even see The Irishman, if you're starting to pencil in your best picture prediction, I'm going to start throwing it to The Irishman. But anyway, like I said, I think it'll be one that's kind of nominated everywhere but won't win anything. Except for performances, I don't see them putting any of the performances in there. They're not going to put Johansson in a double this year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to see Marriage Story as the stronger performance and focus a lot more on that and putting her in lead actress. I don't see The Kid being nominated in lead actor. That's just not going to happen. Thomasin McKenzie would be interesting to throw in a supporting actress, but that would take a fucking miracle, or like a Sam Rockwell in supporting actor, who's also great. All of them are great. My CVS bag just fell and that gave me a fucking heart attack, but all of them are great. They all put on amazing performances. I think this will be a year where I'm going to make what should be nominated, because there's a lot that I'd like to see nominated that I know won't be. And then the question of a director nomination is interesting. You had last year's TIFF winner win Best Picture but not even have a director nomination. And like I said, I think you're looking at a fight for the fifth slot in terms of directors. I think Scorsese, Tarantino, the director of Parasite, whose name I'm not going to attempt quite yet until I really memorize it, and Noah Baumbach are all pretty solidly locked for a position in director. And I think you have like 3 people fighting for that fifth slot. I think you have Sam Mendes, Greta Gerwig, and Taika Waititi. And it's really difficult to talk about 1917 or Little Women considering nobody has seen them, and I don't get to see them for like another month and a half. Sam Mendes has the one take thing going for him, which I think is pretty awesome. I just like to make sure the movie turns out good first. I don't like that release date for a war film, but that's a whole other thing. And Little Women has the period piece going for it, on top of the fact that Greta Gerwig's last film was kind of such a smash hit with at least nominations at the Academy Awards. And then you have Taika Waititi, who's made this film that's directed incredibly well and manages to shift almost beautifully between the comedy and the drama, and he's kind of made this really interesting visual piece on top of all of that. So I kind of think the battle between the 3 of them could be an interesting one, and I'm excited to see how that battle plays out. I just can't speak too much on it yet because I haven't seen 1917 or Little Women yet. I do think the one take thing could play in Sam Mendes' favor, though. I think that could be a big deal for him, so I'm excited to see that movie. Part of me thinks it looks a little bit too much like Dunkirk, but, whatever. I think Jojo Rabbit's one to look forward to in technical nominations. I forgot to talk about that with Joker, too. I think Joker could be one to look for in, cinematography, score, even production design and costume design, though I think it could get overshadowed by something like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I think both of those films are ones to look to in those types of technical noms, you know, costume design and production design. I don't know about score for Jojo Rabbit. That one's a lot more focused on soundtrack, which is a distinct difference, but Jojo Rabbit, you gotta see it if you want to see the movies nominated for picture. The fight, I think it'll be in screenplay for sure, and then the fight for director is definitely one to keep an eye on. Here it is. Parasite. Parasite. Let's talk about Parasite. I think for right now, it's safe for me to say Parasite's my favorite movie of the year. As of this moment, I have by far enjoyed it the most. I have not been quite as captivated by a film as I have been this year by Parasite. I was fully engaged for its runtime. I couldn't wait to see where it would go next. Pretty much everything about it is perfect to me. Every little detail, the way the plot progresses and builds, the way the scale gets larger and the tensions grow higher is so perfectly done. Just every little tick falls into place, and I think the Academy's going to recognize that. It's like this year's Roma, man. It's your international film for fucking sure. Nothing is going to come close. Pain and Glory is second, and it doesn't even stand a chance. It'll absolutely be in picture. Like I said, you have the director who will be in there. Screenplay will absolutely be a nomination. Winning any of those would be tough. I don't know about that. Other than international film, it's going to win international film. Screenplay with that and Hollywood could be interesting now I think about it. The Gold Derby right now has it as kind of a race between Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Marriage Story, and Parasite. So, you know, I think that could be an interesting fight, but I don't know about performances getting in there either, but hell, is this a movie you have to see. It's going to be nominated everywhere, deservedly so. It's my favorite film of the year so far. I haven't seen Irishman yet, so, you know, we'll see what happens with that, but God, I love this movie. There's not much to say about it other than the fact that it is, you know, the lock for international film. Recently, at least, that's kind of helped, you know, put the movie elsewhere. Like if Roma shows anything, it's that international films can be swept up into the major categories as well. So Parasite, you gotta see, and I hope to see it again and maybe even do a video talking about it more in detail. The last one I want to talk about is Marriage Story, which I had the sheer luck of being able to see at a small film festival here. Unfortunately, my friends came that weekend, so I only got to see that movie, but they played like Honey Boy, and they played Portrait of a Lady on Fire, The Two Popes, which I was like, fuck, I really wanted to see that, but this movie is also really excellent. I'm not terribly familiar with Baumbach's filmography. I know what he's made, but he hasn't been a crazy success with the Academy before. He has a screenplay nomination under his belt, but this is the one that's going to propel him forward. You've seen a lot of critical praise from this movie, a lot of film festival praise from this movie as well, and when it hits Netflix, it's going to make a fucking boom. I think people are going to love this movie, and it's just the kind of movie that Academy voters love. It's the subtle type of film, like I was talking about with Banderas. Adam Driver could really be one to look out for a win. The Oscars love him recently. The Black Klansman vote was a huge propel forward for him, and then to just kind of have that pitch and then this be the fucking swing. I think if he's got his shot, I think this year is that shot for him to take it home. I think it's very possible. You know, Phoenix and De Niro make for good competition, and even Banderas in a sense, but I think he's one to look out for. I even think Scarlett Johansson is one to look out for. She's absolutely getting nominated for this. It'll be her first Oscar nomination, and I think that almost helps her in terms of a possible win against Zellweger. We'll have to see how the two of them fight against each other throughout the entire season. And then Laura Dern is also the front runner to win supporting actress. I could totally see that. She's a scene-stealing type of supporting performance, and those are very successful when they roll around. Every time she's on screen, she owns the scene. Your focus is on her little monologues that she does. Baumbach will be in director. His meticulous direction and the little nuances that he puts into every scene are fucking unreal. You really, if you blink, you could miss something. He is a fucking genius when it comes to directing this movie. Even the writing of this movie, it's raw, it's brutal, it's funny, but it hits you in all the right ways. It does everything it sets out to achieve. Cinematography is a possible nom for this one too. Again, it's like Parasite. You gotta see it. It's gonna be everywhere, and I think, you know, it could be an underdog if it does significantly better and better and better as time continues to go on. Start looking for it for some of those big wins. It's tough to say right now, but I don't think it's an impossibility at all. And that's it. That's what I've seen that I think could be Oscar contenders. There's a ton of stuff coming up that I'm going to see. I have Ford v Ferrari and The Irishman next week, and then I believe I'm going to see A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood when that hits, and then I think I've got a little bit until like anything big comes that I've got to see. Like I said, I'm waiting for 1917, I'm waiting for Two Popes, I'm waiting for Little Women, and that'll kind of help. Oh, I'm also going to see Harriet this coming week. I need to see Cynthia Erivo's performance. I'm quite interested to see if she'll be in there. That'll probably just be a tweet. Look for a tweet from me, you know, what I thought of that movie and of that performance. I don't think there will be much to say about the movie itself. I've heard it's just kind of a bland biopic with really stellar performances all around. So look for my, like, a tweet or a letterbox review on that. For all of you who have stuck around, thank you. I appreciate it. I promise to try and get back into the swing of things. I want to do just a Ford v Ferrari review, even like A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood review, just, you know, get back into that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of all of what I said in the comments below, and I will see you all next time.